Hello YouTube, this is Zach, and today I'm going to be analyzing Angeline Quinto singing at Ang Hirap. This video has been a nightmare so far. I have recorded it now 3 times. The first time I realized halfway through that my video wasn't recording at all. The second time I recorded the whole video and my hair was standing up, so I'm re-recording it again. So it goes to say that this is definitely not a reaction video. I've seen this video several times, and I'm not really a reactor anyway. When I watch videos, I've already seen them. I'm kind of giving you an analysis of what I've already seen. So a little bit of background. Quinto is from the Philippines. I actually have a Filipino girlfriend, and she recommended for me to look at this video. I know it's very popular with Filipino singers, and I've learned a little bit about Filipino culture and kind of the background, and it's given me a bit more of an appreciation for the style and what the approach is. A lot of Filipino singers are completely self-taught, and Quinto is no exception. I think she won a talent show competition when she was a bit younger, and that kind of volleyed her into the spotlight, into being famous. But prior to that, she had no real singing training whatsoever, other than just singing at home, mimicking her favorite singers, and just growing up around it. That's one thing about Filipino culture that I've learned, is that singing is just such this integral part of their culture. It's everything to them. Everybody sings. So the fact that she made it where she is huge, because she shined above everyone else in her community, and the Filipino people are seemingly very proud of their singers. So this is At Ang Hirap. It's kind of a sad song, but I think that she delivers it in a way that's pretty compelling. So without further ado, here we go.
Wish 1075.
Naglalagay ng kolorete sa aking mukha para di nila malaman ang tunay na naganap, na ikaw at ako ay hindi na.
So the first thing to point out about her singing is she's singing very softly, and I've actually been talking about this somewhat frequently lately. She's doing a really good job of keeping it on the voice, which means that she's getting good stable chord closure. Even though it's soft, a lot of people have the problem of being breathy when they sing softly, and I've explained that recently. I'm not going to go through all of it again, but basically the idea is that as long as you're getting full vocal cord closure, your vocal folds are completely closing when you make sound, being soft is fine. You want to avoid breathiness, because when you have a lot of air coming through, it can mess up your breath support, it can wear out your vocal folds, and also your folds don't fully close because there's extra air passing through them. When that occurs, it can cause vocal damage, all sorts of things. So she's doing a really good job of keeping the vocal folds closed during this soft singing. It's just really nice. If you want to learn a little bit more about it, I have a short about messa di voce. It's kind of that concept of the placing of the voice, keeping the voice consistent with chord closure with it soft. So she does a really good job of that here.
Inensayo pang mga ngiti para di halata.
One thing that I want to point out, I actually pointed it out on one of my older recordings, is that she does a really good job throughout this song of matching the dynamic of the accompaniment. She never oversings, and it's notable to me how she changes her dynamics and she adjusts her volume based upon the context of the music around her throughout the whole song. And it's something that other people have talked about this video, and I think other people have analyzed it to some extent, but I think people have been missing that like she does a really good job of matching the dynamic of the song and of the accompaniment and not over singing. It's really nice.
Damdamin ko'y pinipigil, sa loob umiiyak, dahil ikaw at ako ay hindi na. At ang hirap, magpapanggap pa ba ako na ako ay masaya.
So this is not really a vocal analysis thing. I just thought I'd, throw this in. I've heard the song several times now, because I listened to it before I originally started recording, and now I've had to record this for the third time. And through that, I've just gotten more familiar with the song. And the first time I heard it, I was like, okay, this is like, it's whatever. But the more I've heard it, it's actually kind of grown on me a little bit, and I can see why people are singing it so much. The chorus is like really nice, and I wouldn't call it catchy because of just the nature of the song, but it kind of sticks in your head when you've heard it several times. I can see why people like it so much. So one thing to point out here is going back to the dynamic thing I was talking about. now that the song is growing a little bit, it's at the first chorus. The accompaniment a little more stable. There's piano playing. She's got a little bit more volume on it. Her dynamics increase. She gets a little bit louder. So again, that's showing really good sensitivity to her dynamics. Another thing that's notable to point out here is she's sitting down to sing, and that presents so many struggles. Like, I have to teach all the time sitting down. So when I have to demonstrate things for students or sing things or whatever, it's just really difficult because it's hard to get good posture. It's hard to get good breath management. All those things are really difficult to do when you're sitting down. And I think that in spite of that, she's still showing pretty good control of breath management and the dynamic control, even though she's having to stay seated. I would much prefer to have my feet firmly on the ground and be standing up with some stability underneath me, and it's just more comfortable to sing that way. So she's navigating through that, and it doesn't affect her sound at all. So that's really good.
Kahit ang totoo ay talagang wala ka na. At kung bukas pagmulat ng aking mata, may mahal ka ng iba, wala na akong magagawa, di ba?
Okay, so there's a few things about the chorus. So so I'm not even gonna begin to act like I know Tagalog because I don't. And by the way, like, how do Filipinos know so many languages? Like, you speak to Filipino people and all of them know 4 or 5, including mainstream languages, and then like these 3 really obscure ones. It's wild. You guys know so many languages. It's insane. I'm not even gonna begin to say that I know Tagalog, but I can hear the sound and I've heard it being spoken. And the language kind of has like a nasal quality, like a kind of nasal quality sometimes. And one thing that I really like about what she's doing is that while there is a little bit of nasality in the sound, it being a little bit appropriate for the language, she's doing a good job of keeping her vowels relatively free of nasality. Nasality, like singing from the nose, isn't destructive to the voice necessarily. It can be indicative of other vocal problems, but most of the time people are just nasal because they either don't know how to not be nasal or they're trying to mimic someone else. And I would say that in this case, she's doing a really good job of keeping it from being too nasal. The problem with nasality is that if you put nasality in, it can be really hard to get it out. And if you use too much, it can be really bad. I like to compare it to putting salt in your food, right? So putting some salt in your food can make it really tasty and it can add to the flavor and it can make it really good. But when you start putting too much salt in it, it gets really hard to get that salt flavor out. And it's once something's too salty, it's just terrible. And so nasality is very similar. She does a good job, I think, of making the language sound consistent to what it sounds like to speak it, but not letting that nasal quality of some of those nah sounds get into the singing technique too much. So that's really good. Also, she's got really good embouchures. She does a really good job of keeping things narrow. You're going to see that more as the song goes on later, especially. But yeah, she keeps her lips and her embouchures very even and narrow, vertical. She doesn't do too much of the widening of the mouth thing. A couple of times there's a little bit of it, but it's not bad at all. You can hear the dynamics growing a little bit. Just a little bit louder than the first verse. And there's a more stable accompaniment here. See, same thing. The chorus is a little bit bigger. You can even hear a little bit of like electric guitar in the background, and there's like a more consistent rhythm section, and she's getting a little bit louder with it. She's growing with it. So she's showing a really good sensitivity to the dynamics of the music. And I think that that's one of the biggest takeaways from her singing in this as a whole. There are a couple that I'll touch on as well, but the main one is she's very sensitive to the accompaniment. And I always learned the concept of singing within the sleeve of the ensemble. That's a term that was coined by a man named Robert Shaw, who is a famous choral conductor and composer. And he said, sing within the sleeve of the ensemble. And that can mean when you're talking about singing in a choir or singing with a band, you never want to oversing or undersing your environment. You want to make sure that you fit right into it. She does a really good job of that because you hear the dynamic grow as the accompaniment grows, and the accompaniment is stable and it's audible, but her voice is prominent over it in every time that she changes dynamics. So that's a really, really good thing. Another good thing to point out about her singing is that she has really good tonal consistency, and tonal consistency refers to when you sing in different volumes, you sing in different ranges, all these dynamics, whatever. Your voice sounds the same. It doesn't sound like 2 or 3 different people trying to sing within different spaces. Your voice fits everything. And I think there are a few reasons for that. We'll go into that a little bit later, but she does a really good job of having really good tonal consistency throughout the whole song.
Ko na ako'y masaya kahit ang totoo ay talagang wala ka na. At kung bukas pagmulat ng aking mata may mahal ka ng iba, wala na akong magagawa. Di ba?
Nice ah vowel. Yeah, one of the big things about going back to the tonal consistency concept a little bit here is that I think what makes hers good is that she's very aware of what she is as a singer. Like I would call her like a mezzo soprano, maybe an alto, maybe. I haven't heard enough of her music to know how far her low range goes, but based on the lower stuff a little while ago and how she was approaching it, I like to lean toward thinking she's like a mezzo soprano, like a mid high soprano kind of thing. But the reason this is relevant is that she sticks within that. She does not try to go way outside of what her voice is capable of. She doesn't try to sing too low. She doesn't try to sing too high. She's just maximized what her voice naturally does. And I think that this is probably a byproduct of the way that she has trained herself. She's kind of, through her own training, without outside influence trying to tell her what to do, she's kind of said, okay, well, this is what I can do well. This is what sounds good. And she's just stuck with that. One of the things that I run into with students, not these days as much, but especially in the past, when I was working for a music school in particular, I'd run into students who tell me what they wanted their voices to be. And like, that's just not really how it works. We all have our own sort of physical makeup of our voices that sort of sets our limits. And there are some people who can do some of the wild, crazy stuff, all over the place, but those are very rare. And most of us mere humans and mortals have to stick within a certain confined range, and that's totally fine. I'm a bass baritone, and yeah, I'd love to be a tenor, but me being a bass baritone means that I can sing some really cool stuff really prominently that tenors could never do. So this correlates back to her in that it's clear to me that she has found her niche. She's found her vocal space and she sticks within it and she maximizes it really well. And that's what makes her sound so consistent. That's what makes it sound like she's not over singing and she's not pushing and she's not straining. It's because she's just sticking to what works within her voice. So that's a big lesson to take away from this. Don't try to be more than what you are. Accept your voice for what it is and maximize your voice within those confines. It's okay to say that I can't sing an A6 or I can't sing a B1. That's okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you can't be a great singer. It doesn't mean you aren't talented. It has nothing to do with your musical capabilities. And I think that that's a very common misconception that exists in the music space today, especially for singers. And with all this doctoring and things that can be done on social media, you see people representing themselves beyond what their actual capabilities are. And this is a very real, natural performance. There are tons of indicators for that. The intonation is very human sometimes. Like it's not flat, but it doesn't sound tuned. This is maybe EQ'd a little bit, but this is a real live performance and it shows and it sounds real and it sounds human. And I applaud that. I think that's great.
Saan ba ko nagkamali? Di ko maintindihan kung sino pang nagmamahal, siya pang naiiwan, siya pang naiiwan. At ang hirap.
Really nice phrasing. That was a very, very, very long phrase on one breath. And the legato was excellent. So I don't know, again, I don't know the language very well, but I know there's like sounds like that where you kind of have to close on the vowel a little bit. But she maintained her legato even through that. And she made that one single phrase all the way up to that high note. It was super consistent. Again, this is all about her understanding the capabilities of her own voice and working within it. And I'm not the most emotional person in the world. So I've seen some of the other reactions where people just get all caught up in her, the way that she sounds and the emotion of it. I'm a teacher and I kind of approach things from that perspective. So I don't get as emotionally caught up in it. I try to appreciate the singing from the perspective of the technique and the physical parts of the voice. Of course, I can get emotionally involved in music, as you guys have seen before, but from a purely technical perspective, from an analytical perspective, what I see in this is a singer who has taken a natural gift and maximize it to the most that she can. And somehow or another, despite not having any training, she hasn't picked up too many habits that I would say are destructive on the voice. At this key change, and I'll point it out in a minute, there's a couple of things that I think that could be refined in this that could make it a little cleaner. It's not bad by any stretch, but just a couple little things that I would tell my students of habits to avoid. But as far as the approach, as far as the managing of the range and the intonation and the pitches and all that kind of thing, the consistency of tone, it's all great. It's all really good.
Hirap, magpapanggap pa ba ako na ako'y masaya kahit ang totoo ay talagang wala ka
So right there, the embouchure got a little bit wide, little bit. Hold on, where is it?
ay talagang wala.
Right here. Yeah, it's not even that bad though. Like it's a little wide. So what I like to tell people is put your fingers on the sides of your lips, right? Like kind of like this. And if your lips go out past that when you sing, that's usually a sign that your embouchure is a little bit too wide. And this isn't that bad. It's not something that I would tell my students, oh, you're doing it horribly by, but maybe this part would be managed a little more efficiently if it were more narrow. It's not bad. I don't want you to think it's bad. It's very good, but you know, I teach singing for a living, so I want to be educational. So my purpose here is to say, like, these are little things that could be done to make the performance even better. It's not bad, so please don't take it as me saying she's a bad singer. She's an excellent singer, but everybody has things that they can improve. I have things I can improve too. She's about to have what we call a glottal onset as well, and I'll point that out when it happens. I'll explain that too. That really aggressive sound is what we call a glottal onset. And basically what an onset is the way that the voice approaches singing words that begin with vowels. And there are three types of onsets. You have a glottal, you have a modal, and you have an aspirate onset. And each one basically determines different ways that the voice is approaching these notes. So if you have a glottal onset, that means that the vocal folds are engaging before the air reaches the vocal folds as they close, or the glottis. The glottis is the point where the vocal folds touch. An aspirate onset is where air passes before the vocal folds close, and a modal onset is where the folds and the air close at the same time, and that's when it's perfect. When you have a glottal onset, you typically get this like popping sound that's I'll go back and play it one more time so you can hear it. Listen on the you'll hear what I'm talking about. Right here. That really aggressive that's a glottal onset. Now, this is not the worst glottal onset I've ever heard by any stretch, and this is not the end of the world. Doing one glottal onset out of 100 vowels is not going to kill your voice. But this is something that I always point out with my students, and I always point out in singers, because it's just something that you don't really need. It does not help your singing. It does not make things any better or more consistent. It's just something that you can clean up through some training that will make your voice healthier and more efficient. Glottal onsets are the kind of thing that are not going to hurt you in the short term, but if you do them all the time, you make a habit out of it, they will damage your voice in the long term. But like I said, I just don't hear anything in her singing across the board that makes me think that there's going to be like long-term problems. I don't know how she sounds now, but I imagine that she probably still sounds pretty consistent. You guys can let me know in the comments, but I'm pretty sure she's probably doing okay because her general technique is very good. Okay, so at the high note there, she's reaching what we call the passaggio. And the passaggio is the point to where you want to move from your chest voice and your head voice. And one thing that's notable about her performance here is that she hasn't really used any head voice at all. Everything she's done has been chest voice. And that's totally okay. Again, it has to do with her understanding the confines of her own voice. And she's not trying to go beyond what her voice just naturally does. She's not trying to do any weird flips into her head voice in and out. She's just using her chest voice really consistently up in the upper end of her modal register, at the upper end of her chest voice. Again, she's sitting down. So like when you get up into your passaggio, you really want to be stable under. You want to have good solid breath support. You want to have your body physically supported underneath you. And she doesn't have that luxury having to sit in a chair. So the fact that she's navigating as well as she is shows that, again, she's very consistent. She has a very strong sense of vocal consistency to where she can even tap into that when she's not even standing up, not even in proper posture.
Wala na akong magagawa, di ba?
Really nice. And one thing that I like at the end of this, it's really, 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 really subtle. is that if you go back, and this is like proof that this is a real performance, it's not some overdub thing. When she sings this last note, you can see her teeth show a little bit, and you can hear the sound of the vowel change to represent like the closure of the mouth a little bit. And that is an indicator to me this is a completely real live performance. And maybe you're asking yourself, Zach, why are you like praising this as a live performance? The reason is that so many live performances aren't really live. They're overdubbed or tuned or pre-recorded or whatever. And this isn't. So listen to what I'm talking about. Right there, when you see her teeth show, you can hear this like slight drawback on the vowel because the vowel's being covered up by her teeth. And so that's an indicator to me this is a real performance, and I really appreciate it a lot. I know that I probably approach this differently than a lot of the other people who talk about her as a singer, but I'm always going to critique and I'm always going to analyze and I'm always going to use these videos as ways to teach. She's a fantastic singer, especially considering that she has almost no training. She has done a great job of teaching herself to sing just by her environment. And she is what I would say is a shining example of the Filipino culture and their love of singing and just the singing from the heart and the purity of it without all the complicated technicalities and just the love of the art form. We need more of that in American culture, to be honest. And the reason that I decided to analyze this video is because when I look back on my old videos, the Filipino audience had the most positive feedback to everything I did. And some of my most popular, well-performing videos were Filipino singers. So, of course, I want to show you guys the love. And what I think I'm going to do is start analyzing one Filipino singer per month. So if you have any recommendations of other songs to analyze or to talk about, please let me know, because it's a joy for me to do that. Please let me know if there's anything else. I'm sure you have tons of them. But yeah, anyway, that's it. Please like and subscribe. I'm trying to get to 10K. I'm like 8,700 something right now. I want 10K subscribers. That is my goal. So please subscribe. You will see more content like this from me in the very near future. I have a Patreon. Please go there and check it out. You can get sneak peeks on my videos and some slightly more in-depth analysis, stuff like that. Join my Discord server. I give vocal workshops. I give voice lessons. I give a free 30-minute vocal assessment for all incoming students. So please come talk to me there. I'd love to hang out with you and chat with you. Like and follow, subscribe, follow me on all my socials, all that kind of thing. They should all be posted here. So thank you again for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Take care. Bye.